to not want to work with the Minnesota state?
I think it is the most moral thing they could do.
To politicize this?
They're not politicizing it. It is politicized. There's no way around it. It's political.
It is political, but they are
when political
obviously
activists,
furthering it.
So let me put it like this. The American people voted for these ICE operations. Immigration was a top issue, and Trump won, and they're
carried out in conformity with the Constitution.
It is.
And there have been multiple instances where people's due process rights are violated.
Who?
People are, what's her name? Ozturk, Mahmoud Khalil, Kilmar Abrego Garcia.
Hold on. You cited two examples of constitutional movements.
Yeah, their due process. Like Kilmar Abrego Garcia was labeled a terrorist by the Trump administration before he had even been found.
What does due process mean?
Due process means not having, how do I put this into words? Due process is people being given the chance to make their case.
Incorrect.
Before.
That's not correct.
Well, hold on. Before you correct me, my understanding is that people's due process has to do with them being able to be given a fair shot if the state acts against them.
That's not what due process is. Due process is...
Which is to say, make their case, it's brought to a, to a judge and who is a neutral...
Due process is not a proper noun. It's a generic term, literally meaning... We can stop saying the phrase due process because people think it's a proper phrase, like a proper noun, like it cites law. It's literally just a generic phrase meaning the process by which a person has in law. That's all it means.
What about the Fourth Amendment?
What about the Fourth Amendment? Which one? Which part of it?
The due process.
Due process of law means... in different circumstances, certain people are entitled to certain actions.
Yes.
Kilmar Abrego Garcia's due process. Or let's avoid him for the time being and talk about
He's you asked me for an example. He's a good example to go off of.
And he had his due process.
No, he had his due process violated.
No, he did not. That's incorrect.
Yes, he did. The Supreme Court ordered the Trump administration to bring him back because he had been illegally deported. He was deported in error, which the Trump administration admitted and then walked back.
This is incorrect. So we got to break all this down, okay, to avoid, it's going to get clipped either way. An illegal immigrant enters the country through the southern border, right? Let's say a guy from Mexico crosses the border, runs full speed, 60 miles into the United States. What is his due process in this circumstance after he is apprehended?
That you're going to be told and read your charges, told and read your rights,
Incorrect.
And you're going to be given a court date
Incorrect.
and given the chance to make your case before a judge.
That's not what the law or the Constitution says. The process by which an alien is due, because due process is not a proper phrase, it's a generic phrase, meaning the word due literally means due and process literally means process. So we have executive immigration courts and the judiciary has nothing to do with it. The process by which an illegal immigrant is due is called expedited removal. Non-citizens who enter this country illegally do not have the right to a jury trial or a court. Citizens and resident aliens.
No, they don't.
That's not correct.
Yes, they do.
You are incorrect.
The Fourth Amendment does not refer to citizens. It refers to people.
You are incorrect.
Why am I incorrect? Is that not what the Fourth Amendment says?
Okay, that's sophistry. Okay,
sophistry is when you cite the literal words of the Fourth Amendment in the Constitution.
No, you're doing it again.
When I'm talking about due process,
I did not say you are not correct on the language and definitions used in the Fourth Amendment. I'm saying you're not correct.
No, you said I was doing sophistry by citing the Constitution.
No, I'm saying it's sophistry to imply that the phrase people refer to aliens who run through our country across the border illegally, because it does not. Due process refers to, of your status, what you're entitled to.
Yeah. This is what I'm referring to when I say due process.
Is a court hearing.
The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue, but upon probable cause supported by oath or affirmation.
That's not due process.
Particularly describing... Okay, what is your understanding of due process?
Due process refers to the legal requirement that the government must respect all legal rights owed to a person, ensuring fair treatment in legal proceedings. That doesn't mean that they get a trial. Doesn't mean that if you're
immigration law, the Constitution, reserves immigration issues specifically to the executive branch. The immigration courts are not part of the judicial branch. They're part of the executive branch. And the law states that the Secretary of State has unilateral authority to remove any non-citizen at any point for any reason. So Ozturk specifically, it was the discretion of Marco Rubio under the law to say, your visa has been revoked. Thank you and have a nice day. And for that, she is being detained and deported. That is due process of law.
I've been talking about the Fourth Amendment. I meant to say the Fifth Amendment. Nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. That's federal process of the Fifth Amendment.
Who?
Any individual in which the state acts against them.
What does it say?
Let me pull up the entire Fifth Amendment.
Indeed, because it's important to know what it says.
When you say due process of law, it doesn't mean that everyone gets a court trial with a jury. It just
no
means the
person
proper
shall be
legal
held to
proceeding.
answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia, when in actual service in time of war or public danger, nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. That is the Fifth Amendment.
And so now the question is, what does due process mean? Because you're citing the Fifth Amendment, but you're assuming due process means you get a court hearing. That's not true. There are many circumstances in which someone doesn't get a court trial, even if they're U.S. citizens, like if you're insane. They adjudicate your insanity by paperwork and administrative. It's called a 5150. You don't get to go to court over this. You're just deemed insane and locked up. That happens. Does that person have due process? Indeed. If you're exhibiting a threat to yourself or others through mental incompetence, defect, or otherwise, you can be 5150'd. You don't get to go to court. You don't get to ask a judge. It doesn't happen.
I'm not saying that the government can't take actions against you before it's all adjudicated in a court of law or it's been presented before a grand jury.
We're trying to clarify for you.
I'm saying that if they do that, then you are able to open up a case against the government or report.
In some circumstances, some individuals have some rights and some do not. So the way the Constitution works, in Texas, there was a big dispute over the southern border when the Texas State Guard were securing the southern border with concertina wire, and the federal government sent in feds to cut the wire and allow people to cross over illegally. The issue at play, the reason why Texas sent the immigrants to Martha's Vineyard in New York was because the Constitution grants full immigration authority and foreign relations to the executive branch. The judiciary has zero authority on instances of foreign affairs. When a person crosses the border illegally, it doesn't go to a judiciary. The reason why progressives have been saying judicial warrant over and over again is because what they're saying is, outside of the process of the Constitution, we want a court to make an argument against the executive branch.
How do you mean outside of the process of the Constitution?
The Constitution gives full authority on foreign affairs to the executive branch. So what we have are immigration courts, but these immigration courts operate under Trump, not the Supreme Court. That means immigration courts are not judicial hearings, nor does a non-citizen have a right to a judicial hearing. They go to federal executive immigration courts.
You still have due process rights.
No, hold on. You are correct. But due process is different from person to person. Due process for an American citizen is different for a non-citizen. So
I'm not saying it's not different, but I'm saying that there are minimum standards of due process that are applied to every single person
and the due
in which
process
the state acts against
for
them.
an illegal immigrant is called expedited removal. That is, a federal immigration officer gets an order from an executive judge, not a judicial judge, for expedited removal of an individual. They don't go to court. There's no jury, and there's no banging a gavel. The officer can literally, and Obama did this to the tune of, I think, 3 million. They can literally grab the person, say, give me your ID. You're a non-citizen subject to expedited removal. That is your due process, and send them right back.
That doesn't. You think that I won't say that if that is true, that Obama wasn't violating people's due process rights? I would say that he is. That would just be another example of them. Why?
Because the Constitution makes clear that immigration is under the executive branch, and the process by which a non-citizen is due varies from expedited removal to refugee status hearings. And so what we've had is, under Obama, Bush, Democrat, Republican alike, an executive immigration officer can grant you your due process of, are you a citizen? No. Expedited removal. That's due process.
That is not under the purview of the executive. That
yes,
is a right that is guaranteed to every single individual within the interior of the United States, or that the United States takes action against.
You're incorrect.
That doesn't hinge on whether or not the president feels like enforcing it.
No, you're incorrect. The immigration is the purview of the executive branch, and immigration courts are not judicial, they're executive.
No, I'm not saying that immigration isn't the purview of the executive branch. I'm saying that due process rights aren't a matter of if the administration decides to grant them to
your point on the Fifth Amendment, right? You brought up the Fifth Amendment. That the act of being in the United States illegally is not considered a capital or otherwise infamous crime.
I got look. So I think you're just generally not understanding the way the Constitution and the law works. So I pulled this up for you. It's hard to see if I zoom in like this. Yes, U.S. immigration courts are part of the executive branch.
Okay, I didn't dispute that though.
Okay, but this means you're not getting a trial in a court. Immigration courts, they're called courts, but they're executive functions. You don't go before a jury or a judge for issues of immigration. This is not me making an opinion statement. When someone is not a citizen, the issue of immigration is the executive branch. They don't give you a hearing. They snap their fingers. Now, you can argue it shouldn't be that way, but this is because the Constitution gives issues of foreign affairs solely to the executive branch. So due process means the legal process under the Constitution by which you are due. If you are a foreign citizen who enters our country, that is the sole purview of the executive branch to snap their fingers and remove you.
Nothing that you've said contradicts what I've said, because I already granted that due process looks different for every single individual.
Which would mean Kilmar
Abrego
Abrego Garcia got his due process.
No, he had his due process rights violated.
How?
He was sent to CICOT. He was not supposed to be removed from this country.
Says who?
He had, because he already had a stay of removal.
He had expedited removal, indeed.
No. He had something designated on his own immigration.
Okay, look.
We can totally pull this up.
Here's the real challenge we're facing right now. You don't know these stories, and you're basing it off of conjecture and activist opinion.
I can't recall all of the details accurately.
I know,
so let me pull up.
Kilmar Abrego Garcia had an order for expedited removal, but it was stayed because they couldn't remove him send him back to Guatemala.
He's a Salvadoran man living in the United States, was illegally deported on March 15, 2025.
Okay, what are you reading?
By the Wikipedia, by the U.S.
And then
government.
Wikipedia is not a real source.
Under the government, we can go to the primary sources that they
Indeed,
link.
you should. You should read the court documents from ICE. Because I'll just...
Under the Trump administration, which it called an administrative error, which you disputed.
No.
You said he wasn't deported.
An administrative error is not a violation of due process.
At the time, he had never been charged with or convicted of a crime in either country. Despite this, he was imprisoned without trial in the Salvadoran Terrorism Confinement Center, CICOT.
Oh, liberals are fucking retarded. I can't do this. I fucking give up.
You want to respond to what I just said?
Why would he get a trial? What does a trial have to do with an expedited removal in a state to Guatemala? You don't know this stuff, and it's so impossible for me to give you a book, a 300-page understanding of what happened. But the problem is I have to deal with people like this who don't know, don't read, and then vote on it. And no matter how many times, I say it 500,000 times, pull the documents and prove it.
Because he wasn't just removed to that country. He was also then placed in effectively a gulag or torture dungeon.
Which branch has authority?
He was also then placed.
Which branch has the authority?
I'm not disputing that
Okay,
this
just
falls
answer
under.
the question.
I'm not disputing that this falls under the executive.
So why would he get a trial? You read a thing that claimed he didn't have a trial. That's a lie and manipulation.
They were not just trying to deport him illegally to a country that he was not supposed to be removed to, but they were also trying to imprison him, even though he hasn't committed or he hadn't.
The United States did not imprison him.
No, we just deported him illegally. Correct?
What? No, incorrect.
We deported him illegally, and then he was imprisoned and confined at CICOT, which is a torture dungeon.
Oh my God.
He was.
You read a bunch of activist AI slop garbage. Believe it and don't fact check.
So you don't think that CICOT has prolific human rights violations going on?
Trump sent him to
it's
the
a foreign country.
You said
I
just read a bunch of bullshit that made me think
you
this.
You literally
so
on your phone just read a bunch of AI slop. Garbage activist stuff.
Wikipedia
let's start
is
this.
AI slop.
Let's start this.
Stuff.
You read that he was illegally deported without a trial. I am asking you why he would get a judicial hearing when immigration is the purview of the executive branch.
I said he was imprisoned without trial.
Indeed. Why would?
Okay, but
why,
you just
why do we care about El Salvador?
What I just said.
So do we run El Salvador's courts?
No, we don't.
Then why would we write that he got a trial or didn't? It's not related to the executive branch. It's a foreign country.
He was removed to that country specifically.
Is it his home country?
Confined. I don't. It doesn't matter.
You don't know, do you?
He was not.
Did he have a stay of deportation to El Salvador?
No, I can't remember.
He did not. It was Guatemala. This is the insufferable thing. You've taken a strong position on something you just don't understand.
So what does that matter?
The executive branch has sole purview for deportation.
He was not supposed to be sent to that country, correct?
No.
No, he was supposed to be sent to that country?
Yes, he had an order for deportation. The stay was for Guatemala. And the Biden administration and Trump, through his own failures, didn't do it properly.
Why was he supposed to be sent to that country?
He had an order for immediate deportation.
From the Trump administration. You think that was right?
That if the State Department wants to deport somebody, they can, yes.
I'm not asking if they can. I'm asking if you think it's right.
In the specific instance of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, was it right for him to be deported? The answer is yes.
And it was right for him to be imprisoned at CICOT.
I am not El Salvador. What El Salvador does is beyond the United States borders.
You don't have to be El Salvador. Just answer the question. Was it right for him to be imprisoned at CICOT?
If he is if El Salvador finds him to be a criminal, yes, 100%.
So yes, you're saying yes, it was right for him to be imprisoned there.
So if El Salvador finds that their own citizen should go to prison, that's their business.
But he hasn't even been found to have.
That's not us. We are not El Salvador.
You don't have to be El Salvador to have an opinion on this.
My opinion is El Salvador can conduct their affairs as they see fit, and if they determine he should go to prison, he should.
But they didn't determine that. He was just put there.
They did. They put him in prison.
He was just put there.
Because El Salvador decided he should be.
Yeah, but did he have a fair trial?
Does China have fair trials?
I didn't ask if China has fair trials, and that's completely irrelevant.
I
Did he
don't
have a
care
fair trial?
if he had an El Salvadoran fair trial or not. I'm not El Salvador,
So-
nor do I think the U.S. should invade El Salvador or
you
Venezuela.
don't know if he had a fair trial, and yet you'd
He
be
did
fine
have
with
a
him
fair
being
trial.
imprisoned.
He did have a fair trial.
Okay,
Yeah,
he
El
did have a
Salvador's
fair
policy
trial.
is very clear. Anyone with gang affiliation is going to get in prison in CCOT, and he was found
their
to have
law.
gang affiliation. That's their law.
What was the gang affiliation that he was found of?
Trinidad Aragua.
Chendeawaga.
It's actually they accused him of being part of MS-13,
Was it? He's also.
but he was never credibly found. Like, do you remember
by
when
who? By who?
the Trump administration was saying
It was
that
wrong.
those photoshopped MS-13? Yeah,
And because Trump thought
you just said that he was in Trinidad.
I got it wrong. I was wrong about that.
Yeah, okay. So what did he do then? What crime did he commit?
That's up to El Salvador to decide.
Okay. He's not a member of MS-13, though.
I don't care. I literally
that's
don't
their
care. He's not
policy.
American either.
So you
and
don't
if
care
a citizen of El
if
Salvador,
somebody is imprisoned in CCOT, even
I
if
don't.
they've
No.
not committed a crime, and even if they've not been given
I literally
any
could care
due
less.
process of law or had
Yep.
a trial.
He was here illegal. I don't care.
No. We're not talking about it. We're talking about El Salvador. For the same reason, I don't think we should remove Maduro. I don't give a fuck what El Salvador does with their own citizens. I am not El Salvador. I don't want to invade El Salvador. I don't want to impose American hegemonic democratic principles on El Salvador or Venezuela or Afghanistan, Iran, China, or Russia. So right now, what I can't stand is this argument that El Salvador imprisoned a guy. I don't give a fuck what they did. He's El Salvadoran in El Salvador. China's imprisoning Uyghur Muslims and raping them and forcing them to get abortions. That's miserably evil. We can say we don't want to do trade deals with them. That's fine. The U.S. went in and removed Maduro, and liberals are furious about it. Yet at the same time, they're arguing that we should impose American hegemonic principles on El Salvador. I'm sick of it. My principles are pretty dang simple. I'm American. I don't give a flying F what El Salvador, China, or these other countries are doing with their people. I can have moral opposition to it, but I'm not going to demand that we send our military or use the weight to force them to change their institutions. That being said, I think we can sanction China over the rape of the Uyghur Muslims. We shouldn't be trading with people that brutally rape women and force them to get abortions. We can make an argument that we should cut off our trade deals with El Salvador because of CCOT. My point ultimately is...
But so if you only care about what the American government is doing, then do you agree that he should not have been sent there?
He is not an American citizen. And as someone who is not an American citizen, he should go home.
But that is
He
an
doesn't have
American
legal status here.
government.
He doesn't have legal status here. He came here illegally, and there is no obligation for the American
So you
people
don't
to allow a
care
criminal to be here.
Where or how the United States government deports individuals.
Absolutely not.
You don't care if their due process rights are violated. You don't care if the government lies
So you're
about
making
them.
things
There
up
is a
now.
You don't
process for
care.
which
We already
for them
got
I'm
to
to
asking.
enter, though.
I'm asking
So
if
let's
you
be
care
very
about
clear.
those things. No. I'm asking if
Agreed.
you,
Let me
you
be
don't
very
care
clear.
about those things.
If someone comes here from China illegally, they violate our laws and then seek to subvert the will of the American voter, they should be arrested for the crime they committed. And you know what it is? Imagine if someone broke into your house and the worst thing you did to them was give them a ride home. And then it's like a stupid thing to argue. Like a guy broke into my house and is stealing my food. And I'm like, hey, whoa, would you like a ride home? So that's what we do. A guy comes here from El Salvador illegally. We issue an order for deportation. We send him home. Then everyone's going,
An illegal
"But
order because he was not supposed to.
it
be
was a
deported.
legal order of deportation. And he had a stay for removal from the country of Guatemala due to a rival gang. Where this goes is very confusing and weird because the argument was made in the media that he had a stay of deportation to El Salvador when in fact it was Guatemala. Now, some have argued it was a typo in the initial stay, but I'm like, well, if that's the case, when we read it says Guatemala, so he can be sent back to El Salvador. Now, the issue of the administrative error was actually disputed in the Trump administration with Stephen Miller saying no. As he is a member of MS-13 executive purview on matters of national
He
security.
was never found to be a member of MS-13.
He was found by a court, yes, twice.
Which court?
There's
Which
an immigration
judge?
courts that asserted 2 times that he was wearing MS-13
Wait,
gear.
making an assertion is different than them actually having evidence that he was part of
He
MS-13.
doesn't get judicial trials in an immigration executive branch court.
Do you acknowledge that it's 2 different things between actually proving that somebody is part of a gang versus somebody making the assertion that they are?
What
without
does that have to
evidence?
do with what we're talking about?
Because
You're changing the
you
subject.
just said that this person is a confirmed member of MS-13.
An immigration
and you
court
said that was
found that
to
he
have
was a
been the
member
case.
of MS-13
You said they asserted that he was. That's
Indeed.
different than them finding that he was.
because there's no trial for this in the executive branch. Executive is action, not judiciary.
And this was the other thing. This is Supreme Court says
This is
Trump
fake.
officials should
It's
help
just absolutely
return
fake.
wrongly deported Maryland man. The Supreme Court has ordered the Trump admin to facilitate the return to the U.S. of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a Maryland man who was mistakenly taken to El Salvador
Maryland man.
and
Yeah, he
remains
just lies.
in custody there.
He's not a Maryland man. He's an El Salvadoran who was illegally living in Maryland.
So if you live in Maryland for 10 years, you can't be considered part of like a Maryland man.
No,
Not
but
if
the
you're here
language is
illegally.
being used to manipulate the general public because the real issue
So you
is
agree that
a
he
man
could be
from El
considered a
Salvador
Maryland
came
man?
here illegally, had an order for removal, argued that he'd be killed by a Guatemalan gang, got a stay of removal to not go back to Guatemala. Stephen Miller and the Trump administration argued that an immigration court, twice having found him an affiliate of MS-13, he was an entry-level guy. They were going to deport him back to his home country. Then when he got there, El Salvador decided that because they thought he was a member of a gang, they imprisoned him.
Even though he
The
wasn't,
Supreme
even though they have
Court-
no evidence of that.
It doesn't matter what El Salvador thinks. We're not El Salvador. That's it. End of story. I'm not going to make an argument about what Ghana thinks
the
or what
underlying
Zimbabwe
evidence
thinks.
that's being used to say that he's gang affiliated. He's part
You
of
are just saying things to be
MS-13,
tribal.
And you're saying that because we're not in El Salvador, we can't have an opinion on it. Obviously,
No,
we
you can have an opinion
Well,
on it.
but
But,
it's
you're
like-
asking me about, do you believe that the U.S. should assert judicial authority over El Salvador?